Hey everyone. How are you doing this morning? Good? We can't see you. Awesome, that's right. That's what we need. We need enthusiasm. So, on behalf of Lynn and Jonathan and myself, we would like to introduce you to SUP202, using AWS solutions to accelerate customer-led migrations. Now, my name's Rodney Grilly, and I'm a product manager in AWS support, but back in 2010, just like many of you, I was a customer. I was struggling trying to define my strategy to move my customer to AWS, to modernize applications and build net new applications. And back then, there was not a lot of guidance for individuals, but it also wasn't as complex. AWS didn't have the hundreds of services that it had today. And luckily, legends like Adrian Cockcroft, who was developing and migrating Netflix to AWS to go all in, was very generous, and he was publishing everything out on YouTube about the challenges they had and the solutions they used to solve those. So I had that with me. And fast forward to 2014, I joined AWS as a professional services consultant, and over the next 8 years, I spent helping customers just like you to transform as they modernize and migrate to AWS. And there's so much more that we have available today to help customers than we did back then. And I continued on into my current role as a product manager, but there's many service teams and other solution teams that we've been collaborating with for years. And you're gonna hear more about that today. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Lynn.
Good morning. I think it's morning. For some of you, it may not be morning. How's everybody feeling? Staying healthy? Taking the emergency? This is a wild week. But it's so great to be here. Thank you for your time and attention. Lynn Jones, I'm a senior product manager with AWS support. And today we're going to go through a couple of different genres. So we're going to start with talking about business drivers and why you may be making your journey to AWS on the cloud. We spoke to a couple of you in the line, and it sounds like you're in various stages of making those decisions and various stages of that journey. And then once you start to make those decisions and know your why, we'll identify some common obstacles that you may encounter. And then we're going to finally give you the solutions that we have to offer to help you overcome those obstacles, help you come up with a plan. What I'm really excited about is we actually have a few experts in the audience as well, so they'll help us with Q&A at the end. So make sure that you have those questions ready. We are going to allow time for that. We're going to walk through an imaginary example, and then at the very end, we're actually going to share a real live customer testimonial so that you can believe it from him and not us with orange badges. So with that, see if I can figure this out. Okay, so your business drivers. A lot of these kind of top couple that we're going to go over have probably been in your strategic plans for years. These are the ones that we like to tell our executive staff that we're trying to achieve. But we all want to move faster and transform our customer experiences, deliver on those digital transformation goals, reinvest the cost savings and innovations into future business models and new innovation. Improve security and resilience. We've probably heard a lot about that this week. Where Rodney and I have spent the last year or so is with customers wanting to lead their own migrations. We've learned a lot with them. They're trying to do things like exit data centers, reduce the costs and fees associated with different licenses from an on-prem model. And then customers who are trying to upgrade different services like RDS, they're looking for help with these things. They want to do this themselves, but they just need that little bit of added assurance from AWS, and we're going to share some ideas that we have around that. And then this week especially, we've heard a lot about machine learning and AI, and I'm sure a lot of you want to know more about that and how you can use that to help your businesses. So these are reasons why folks are moving to the cloud. And then common obstacles once we make those decisions really come around who has the right cloud skills. Do you have enough folks inside your organization that know these services inside and out? And then you may have them, but there may not be enough bandwidth to help actually operationalize and then execute these migration changes. So that's really the number one. 26% of migrations that we've studied over the last 5 years really fall into to this category. And then migration planning, really making sure you have the right tools, assets, time, resources, money. All of that is another common obstacle. People and culture issues. This has been really interesting in the last several years with people moving to home, moving back to the office, attrition, leadership's changing. Maybe you have leaders who are all in on AWS and then that person leaves, so this is another common obstacle. And then technical blockers really kind of goes along with the cloud skills segment, but just really getting that help when you need it. And this is, I'm sure a lot of these resonate with you all. So Rodney.
Excellent. So, as I said earlier, in the early days, there wasn't a lot of prescriptive guidance, but today, with our service teams and our solution development from our builders, we think we have a really good story to tell for customers just like you that are choosing to lead your own migrations. Now, the way we organize these, you've probably seen a version of this slide before. We organize customer journeys around 3 phases: the assess, mobilize, and then migrate and modernize. And then we drill in deeper in that. So during the assess phase, it's really important that you use tools to get an accurate inventory of what you have today. Now, we were talking with a few of you out in the lines as you were prepping to come in here, and one of the things that was brought up was trying to figure out what you have today on-prem. So we have tools to help you do that. So then you can feed that as input into your business case, because your business case is going to identify and set how much financing you need to gain from your organization in order to move forward and achieve those business outcomes. Now, after you get past that and you got your business case, then we need to dive deeply, and you need to understand details about your applications, security requirements, capacity and scaling requirements, and how those impact the way you move those applications to AWS. So do they fit into a lift and shift, or do you have to do lightweight replatforming, or do you have to do more heavy lifting, refactoring, and modernization? So once you have that, then we need to understand the dependencies and relationships between those applications and components, because you need to build waves. We have a customer that has multiple thousands of servers to migrate, and in those situations, if you're there, you need to put these together into waves so you have an orderly, safe progression of migrations of workloads into AWS. Now, where are you migrating them to? You have to have a solid foundation in AWS that meets your security and compliance requirements, and that's the landing zone. So now you have all this together. You figured out how to move a couple applications. Now you have to do it at scale, right? Because you want to reduce your cost and you want to reduce the time it takes to migrate. And so during the migration and modernization, it's all about that automation and orchestration. And we have tools and solutions to help you do that so you can achieve your outcomes in the shortest amount of time and the lowest cost. Now, based on that, there's so many things on this slide that we have grayed out, and there's so many sessions and so many things that we can talk about during Q&A. But right today, we're only going to focus on a few of them, and then that way we can drill in deeper as we go into the following Q&A. So with that, oh, this is still me because now it's here. So before in the landing zone, when we were talking about the landing zone earlier, one thing that customers do a lot of times is they want to start building a solution, and they want to start figuring out how to do a landing zone, for example, but they haven't figured out what operating model they want to use first. So always remember, you have to source things before you can design them. And in a sourcing model, we have 3 main ones. Now, most of you are here because it's customer-led migrations, so we're assuming that you want to self-lead. You want to be able to learn how to do it, learn how to build a landing zone and deploy it and operate it. But in many cases, we see customers over the years that really want to do it themselves, but they run into struggles because as they're trying to maintain the landing zone across multiple regions and accounts, they slow down on their migration and modernization because their small tech teams are so focused on just maintaining operations. So we have AWS Managed Services that starts to take some of that load off. It allows you to ensure you have a compliant, secure landing zone and environment to migrate. And then in the future, you can always shift back to self-managed once your teams get skilled up and ready for it. Now, the third is if you're on-prem today and you're using partners to manage, you're using SIs or GSIs, global systems integrators, you might want to do more of a partner managed solution. And we have lots of APN partners that are managed services providers. But since you're here in this session, I'm assuming that that's not what you're looking for. But we can also in the Q&A session talk about more about that, but it will impact your decisions on landing zones and other things. So now Lynn is going to talk about our scenario that we're going to use.
Great. So this company is Unicorn Company because I have daughters and they like magical things. So this company is magical. Hope you enjoy that. So Unicorn Company is facing a variety of conditions. So they are wanting to shut down a data center. During COVID, they decided that they needed to get out of those data centers and move to the cloud. And they wanted to be able to quickly do this so that they could innovate and continue to serve their customer needs. Second, they needed to move key applications and AWS knowledge to help them with availability, scalability, and business agility. They wanted to lead their own journey. And so they needed to upskill their staff. They needed to make sure that they knew what they were doing, that they had a plan, they had a tight timeline to achieve these goals. And they also needed to ensure that they had to protect their customer data. So this is another just essential component of their overall plan. And they didn't want to rely heavily on a partner. So talking about what Rodney was just saying, that they really wanted to do this themselves. But they were starting to stall out. So we're going to walk through a plan that their AWS team helped them with. So first of all, the team identified this customer's gaps, and they developed kind of a 4-pillar approach. Starting with end-to-end prescriptive framework and tools, they decided that they were going to leverage a tool that's actually in preview right now called AWS Migration Journey Hub. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in detail in just a moment. But what this does is really identifies the plan, and it's a place for folks to collaborate together, identify those tasks, and stay in a single platform to really work those things out. We'll show that to you. The second is around augmenting and building their cloud skills. So for this, we actually asked them to subscribe to a product that was released on Monday called Countdown Premium. And what this does is give an account designated access to a support engineer who can help augment their team with technical skills. This is a different role than their TAM, their account manager, their CSM. It's someone who sits inside support engineering, has direct access to support engineering tools and experts. So that was how we're augmenting the cloud skills. And then we wanted to help them secure cloud foundations and break up their internal silos. So with that and the critical piece around security and compliance, we helped them work through an experience-based accelerator and then the solution landing zone. And then the fourth pillar is really around automated solutions so that in time, as they're doing these things themselves, that they're able to repeat this process with the framework that we've helped them build. So really getting into this, we talked about the end-to-end framework and tools. I'm just going to jump right ahead. So we actually have the product manager in the room. So if you have specific questions about this, we can deep dive it a little bit later. But this product is in preview right now. And we've seen a lot of customers really enjoy this because of the ability to bring in collaborators, both from AWS, their own internal teams, even from their partner side. And it allows them to keep the project plan all in one place with their ability to prioritize different tasks, check them off, everybody can see the status. We can actually upload specific journey templates to help them achieve their outcomes. They can share assets back and forth, and it really just helps the team use approved templates, and not only approved, but the things that AWS has done and used themselves over the last decade of helping customers do this. You now have direct access to the things that we use to support things like Prime Day on our own side. Second, around augmenting and building cloud skills. I got a little bit excited about this earlier. I already told you quite a bit. So Countdown launched on Monday. There's actually a QR code on here that can link you to that webpage so you can learn more. And this one is where we apply that designated engineer. If you wanted to sign up for this, you really just need to help us identify the different services and the outcome that you're looking for. And then the way this engagement works is it's just a monthly subscription. So we've really tried to make this an easy way for you to get help when you're trying to do things yourselves, but have that AWS expert available for you to maintain continuity throughout the migration journey. And what this does is accelerates your entire outcome. They have the context from the very beginning and then are with you throughout your journey. It could be a minimum of a month, all the way to customers that have stayed with us for 18 months on this service, just really looking for that extra deep dive technical expertise. I think it's your turn.
Excellent. So now we move over to the fast track to establish a secure foundation in the cloud. So with the customer, we had already identified earlier that they chose the self-managed model. They want to do it themselves as much as possible. But when we look at customers over the years, especially in recent years, a typical customer that has 10 AWS accounts and they want to work in 3 regions. So I'm actually referring to a real customer that we implemented the landing zone accelerator solution with right as we were launching that product. Guess how many cloud formation scripts it takes to manage a 10 account, 3 region operation? Do you think it's in the tens? Do you think it's in the hundreds? It's actually around, in this one customer situation, it was 136 cloud formation scripts across those 10 accounts and those 3 regions, and there's around 90,000 lines of code in those cloud formation scripts. Now, CloudFormation is awesome for defining and implementing your resources. Terraform is as well. But by themselves, they are not pipelines, automated pipelines that you can use to ensure you're managing your compliance controls as you're deploying it. So the LZA solution is a CDK, so Cloud Developer Kit solution that allows you, and it's open source again. It's one of our AWS solutions, and it's published in open source. It allows you as a customer to use TypeScript. So if you have really small teams and they're mostly developers and they're trying to build cloud native applications, TypeScript really lends to those developers. They don't need to learn CloudFormation and some of those more cloud operation skills. But more importantly, there's 7 TypeScript files, and for this one customer, we ended up having 9,000 lines roughly of code in those 7 TypeScript files that would then, when you go through the build process, build and deploy the 136 CloudFormation scripts with 90,000 lines of code. Now, what is that from an optimization perspective? Remember, when you need to maintain these and you need to scale globally, you need to ensure that you have a plan for manage that sprawl of code, right? This is code just like any other code base. So with that, the Landing Zone Accelerator solution already comes with compliance kits based on PCI DSS and NIST 853 and other standards that you start with. And then all you have to do is tweak them and evolve them to meet your specific needs. So as Lynn said earlier, we talked about Countdown and the engineers. If you are using Countdown, our engineers are Landing Zone Accelerator ambassadors, so they understand the product, they understand how to deploy it. We also, if you aren't using Countdown, AWS supports this AWS solution. So if you have issues when you're deploying it or trying to use it, even though it's an open source solution at no cost, you can submit a support case and we'll help you resolve those issues. And then within our AWS managed services, we actually have an operations on demand if you want them to just operate that landing zone for you for that interim amount of time, as I mentioned earlier. So a lot of really exciting things. The other thing I want to call out is experience-based accelerators. We have another mechanism that we call, which you might hear of them as parties. So what we do is, as we're working with you as a customer, we teach you how to pull together these 2 to 3 day scrums where you get all the right folks together, teach you whether it's a platform party, and teach you how to deploy LZA or a migration party or a modernization party. It really gets to teaching you as an organization how to work in a more lean and agile fashion. And as you learn it, then you go off and you spread that throughout your organization. And that's how you start to transform as you're working on your migration. So next, automated solutions for orchestrating migration tasks. So as I said earlier, and for this unicorn company, they have thousands of servers. They have multiple waves that they need to manage to move those thousands of servers, and they were doing it in around a 12 months. So 1,200 servers around a 12-month time period. 12 to 18 months is what they were targeting. So with that, you need to, as I said earlier, in that migrate and modernize phase, you need to automate and orchestrate. So the customer, 80% of the servers are already rehost. The customer is using our AWS application migration service, but then they're also using on top of that another AWS solution, again, open source, no cost, the Cloud Migration Factory. So think on top of MGN, now you have an automation and orchestration engine. On a typical rehost, it takes around 12 hours if you're manually upgrading servers by themselves. So if you assign engineers to each server, it takes about 12 hours. With the Migration Factory, you now don't deploy and make changes. There's usually around 26 actions or activities that you have to do to take that instance from the beginning all the way to the cutover. With that, with the Migration Factory solution, you now do that at the wave level. So if you have waves of 20 servers, you're able to deploy and all those changes and track the activities and updates for every server within a wave, thus reducing your overall time from that average 12 hours per server down to about 4 hours per server. So imagine if you are, whether you're a customer doing that or you're a partner helping customers along, imagine that amount of time savings times the thousands of servers. That's what we're looking for. We're looking at ways to automate and orchestrate, and now with the Migration Hub journeys, it will be incorporating further into that, so you start to get a single pane of glass or a single view or digital user experience. So lots more to come on that, but it's really exciting, as Lynn said earlier. So in the case of the unicorn company, they were moving along much quicker than they thought because they implemented all these tools and solutions. And so they had another application that was this Flamingo app that really has been getting beat up in the market. And so this allowed them to have more time to spend to now focus on doing the next iteration of the Flamingo app. Back to the parties that I talked about, those EBAs or experience-based accelerators, they had a modernization party. They were able to quickly identify some hypotheses and experiments for new features, and they started developing that in parallel to doing their migration, which is a very hard feat for many customers to get to the point where they can do two things like that, addressing two different business outcomes. So to sum it up for the unicorn company, they were able to exit their data center 2 months early. They were going to be very close to a lease expiration, which was going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to extend it. They were able to meet their compliance requirements and security requirements in literally a month and a half versus the typical. We have a lot of customers that it takes 6 to 12 months to get to that point where their landing zone is compliant to meet the needs, especially if they're doing HIPAA or PCI DSS or other types of workloads. The migration automation really allowed them to reduce the amount of time it took and simplify the number of staff they needed in order to perform those migrations. So that was awesome. And because they were doing all that more efficiently, they actually had time to spend with their product team, making the business unit that was suffering very happy to get progress on the Flamingo application. So that's enough from us. As Lynn said, the yellow badges. Now we want you to hear from a real customer. So Jonathan, come on up.
Great. Thank you, Rodney. My name is Jonathan Hutchins. I'm Director of Engineering Services at LegalZoom. Our company does business formations, financial planning tools, and easy legal document generation. My team handles developer operations, site reliability engineering, as well as identity at LegalZoom. And about me, I've been working with Amazon AWS since about 2007. This was my third AWS migration, and all of the migrations were fairly large. So this particular journey that we went along, some of the biggest challenges that we had were we had a fulfillment system that was designed for accuracy and not efficiency. When it comes to legal documents, it's very important that everything is accurate, but it doesn't matter how long it takes. So we had a bunch of disjointed systems all connecting into each other, very sensitive to shifts in latency. And it was highly complex because the company's been around since the early 2000s. Most of the subject matter experts who actually designed the system have long since moved on to other jobs, and we're left with a system that we're not really sure, is this supposed to do with this, or was this, is there an error here? So multiple interdependencies in our systems, and we had a small migration window of 2 years. And 2 years seems like a lot of time, but when you have 2 data centers and you have to shut them down, you have to get rid of all the equipment, shift loads back and forth, it does add up. And 2 years is actually a pretty small window. So there wasn't really enough time to refactor everything, but we wanted to be able to refactor what we could and then plan the migration and execute it very, very safely. Another thing was we had a really skilled team. We weren't looking for someone to come in, a set of contractors to come in, do the migration for us, and leave us with a system that, once again, we didn't know exactly what it was doing. So our team was willing to learn. They wanted to get the training and go along with this actual migration. So why did we choose AWS? Well, it was the ease of integration with our tech stack. We were moving in the direction of Kubernetes. EKS was a simple solution for us to be able to migrate. We also have trust in the AWS services and support. Our enterprise support team has been phenomenal. Our technical account managers have been able to help us with finding out what we thought we knew that we didn't really understand. And so, once again, we had full confidence in our team, but we wanted the AWS expertise in case we ran into issues. And so we had really large databases that were interdependent, using proprietary SQL Server features. Back in the day, the best practice is running your database servers on bare bones hardware. Moving to virtualization requires a mindset shift. You have to actually sell your team that virtualization has changed and it's actually better and it will simplify things and open you up to be able to do more things. So our team recognized this. We got a contractor in to help us design our database architecture in AWS. It wasn't as simple as migrate all of our databases to RDS. We did need to run SQL Server on some EC2 instances because we do use a number of proprietary features that only will run on EC2. But we did receive detailed documentation on what our new architecture is going to look like, step-by-step details for us to migrate. And it was a huge confidence boost for our team because we had the plan presented to us, but we had a say in it. We were able to actually execute the plan ourselves, so the team gets to learn as we go along. So what were the solutions that we used? Overall, it was Countdown Premium, which provided a designated engineer who became familiar with our unique architecture. This also enabled us to have an around-the-clock team in order to support us during our migration window. AWS Control Tower, Rodney and Lynn were talking about that before. We followed the well-architected design in order to build out our control tower environment. And it's made it really easy to separate workloads. We have I think now over 100 separate AWS accounts, all managed with Control Tower. And anytime that we switch a monitoring provider, we can create a script within Control Tower in order to be able to deploy updated monitoring, updated endpoints. And it really makes it simple for us to manage our giant environment. Another thing that is really important for compliance for our team is IAM credential restriction. We don't want to have a bunch of IAM credentials sitting around. And so we made it really hard to generate credentials. That way we were forced to use IAM policies wherever we can. We also were in the process of containerization. Our team used Backstage to create scaffolding in order to generate your GitHub repo for deploying an application. So the team can go from take their code, press a button, and then pods will spin up in all of the environments very easily. And this enabled us to have a new way of deploying applications. So we were able to have all new services that we launch on containers while we were planning on moving our databases behind the scenes. And containers, obviously, it simplifies monitoring. In the data center, logs were the bane of our existence, constantly filling up disks. In EKS, the logs can go to the aggregator and then off to our log provider. And so very, very simple. And security can be standardized. Our artifact store is the only service that you can actually pull containers from within our environment. There's a lot of very cool features that you can install within EKS. Data replication. This was a big one. We had, again, a bunch of proprietary databases, limited knowledge on some of the older components, and we had to move terabytes of data to AWS. We had to ensure our downstream data syncs were not impacted. And this isn't always popular, but we needed to have a way to fall back to the data center in the event that we did run into a problem. And so we had to design our entire migration plan with the plan that we will fail back if we absolutely need to. We used DMS, that's Database Migration Service, native replication, and backup restore of our different databases in order to move it. We ran into some hiccups here and there, but our enterprise support team, as well as the countdown team, was very helpful in the process. So as it was coming to a head, we were getting very close to our migration day. It's 3 days before cutover, team's feeling the heat, tensions are really high across the team. And so we had our support team, our AWS Countdown support team, brought up to speed by our technical account manager, and they were able to coordinate all issues. We validated the rollback plan for like the 20th time, and we discovered some last-minute issues with the database migration service. We encountered some bugs that weren't expected, but our countdown team was able to take the issue, work with it around the clock, even while we were sleeping, and eventually were able to resolve the issue, which meant that we were able to meet the date of our migration. And so the round-the-clock support was absolutely critical. So how did everything end up? Well, we ended up with 5 hours of minimal downtime. Our plan was to take the site offline at 9 p.m., bring it online at 2 a.m. I think it was 2:06 a.m. when we actually lifted our turndown page. We ran into, afterwards, 18 P1 issues that mostly revolved around downstream data syncs. Since we shifted from native replication to DMS, some things were not working as we had planned just due to the difference in the architecture. We also ran into some issues where we decided to keep our on-prem load balancer and route traffic back and forth between it. It didn't work as well as we were hoping, and so we quickly had to create load balancers in order to move the traffic into AWS. But most of the issues we knew we might encounter, so we had a plan in order to solve them. Terabytes of data were transferred. 450 servers were migrated the night of the migration. All in all, we have hundreds of nodes within our EKS environment. So as we were adding new applications and building up our new infrastructure, the remainder was 450 servers that had not been modernized. And we maintained our customer experience. If you look at the graph behind there with the latency, that was the latency before the migration and the latency after the migration. The experience was palpable. The CEO of our company walked in on Monday morning really, really happy because the site was so much faster. And you could actually tell it was not, it wasn't, it was actually real. And so very, very, all in all, it was a very, very smooth experience. And so Rodney and Lynn, want to take over? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great. So thank you for sticking with us. We have 24 minutes left. But I wanted to probably shouldn't say that. I wanted to display another slide. Take a picture of this one because there's a lot of different products that have just released, have new updates. Go research these because a lot of these are coming directly from support, which is where Rodney and I are from. There are product managers in this room. So you guys now have 23 minutes and 45 seconds to tell us what you need. Tell us what you want. Ask those deep questions. We have time. We have the experts in the room. This is your opportunity to tell AWS what you need, where you have questions. A lot of people in here are well connected and know where to get more information, get you the right people. But as you can see, these are structured across all the different phases. We've called them a couple of different things today, but we always start with planning and assessment. I talked a little bit about Prime Day earlier. When we do those Prime Day events ourselves, planning is absolutely critical. It's something that we do incredibly well, and now we want to share those tools with you so that you can plan just as well as we do. And doing those architecture reviews, just so essential. AWS Repost Private is brand new. And we learned a lot about that just a few days ago. I would seriously look into learning more about that if that's something for you. We talked about AWS Countdown. Countdown comes in two flavors. The first is what you get as part of your enterprise entitlement. It was called an IEM. It's now just called Countdown. And then the premium engagement is that what you've known as your IEM for a longer period of time and engaging with that designated support expert. I think I moved too far, sorry. And then as far as AWS Health and Incident Detection and Response, I think I saw the IDR product manager sneak in here at one point. He's hiding. I hear him. I feel his smile. He's somewhere in here. So if you want to learn more about IDR, he's here as well. And again, as we move further to the side, as we modernize and innovate, and we want to get you all to that optimization phase. We want you to do what you do best. When we can help you with all these things and get you back to your core competencies and where you want to innovate and grow your businesses, that's success for us. We're all customer obsessed. It's what Amazon does. And we really want to hear from you. So get into the app, give us feedback, stay here, talk to us. Let me give you a little more information. So these two first sessions, if you want to go grab the replay, they already happened. I know there was a customer in here earlier that was interested in the MAP program, so Migration Acceleration Program. We partner with them very closely. They have a proven methodology. They know how to do this, and they're hungry to get better. So absolutely go look into that session to learn more. Enterprise 236, the architecture-led portfolio migration. Again, go grab those on replay. They've already happened. And then SUP202, Tool is in the room. He's going to be giving a demo of this. Arun is in the room, who's the product manager for it. So if you have questions about that, again, that's that platform where customers, partners, internal folks can all collaborate, follow AWS prescriptive guidance, the things that we've known and done for years. Rodney used them in ProServe. All of that is now packaged up for customers to use. Migration Journey Hub is free to you when it gets out there. It's still in beta. I know Arun's still taking customers. So if you want to know more about that, let's get in touch. So with that, we got one final slide. Please complete the survey. Thank you.